Hey guys, today I decided to branch out with an upload. Now, I hope you enjoy because it took me a really long time to write the script and get all the stuff for the video. Anyways, let's just get straight into it. Back in 1992, Nintendo had just released the first game of a new series, Super Mario Kart. The game had been credited with inventing the kart racing subgenre, and soon after its release, several duplicates followed it. The game received positive reviews when it was released and diversified the Mario franchise. Now to get to the game of the video, fast forwarding 14 years, Nintendo released its best-selling home console, the Wii. The Wii launched with 33 launch titles, but none of them was a Mario Kart game. We had to wait till 2008 for the new Mario Kart release. That was 2 years after it was released. The Wii was released, and it came on April 27th, 2008. Mario Kart Wii was released in the US. It came like 15 days earlier in Japan. Yeah. It was released with the usual 16 classic tracks from previous Mario Kart games and 16 brand new tracks, along with one of them, the best in my opinion, Coconut Mall. Now, Coconut Mall, it was a generic track with a giant rectangle, pretty much, with a turn that switches back, that provide a lot of room to drift, and a gliding section about 2/3 into the track. It also had a few shortcuts, one of them through a store, and a second where you could drive over a boost pad, as well as the gliding part. Coconut Mall has escalators that provide some speed increase or decrease depending on which you drive on. You can also drive on the side and get some speed boost. Uh, but now that you know the basics of Coconut Mall, it's time to get to what the video is about. The speedruns. The first speedrun came out as soon as the game hit the shelves in Japan, 15 days before the US release. For the purpose of the video, I've decided to mainly focus on the speedruns with video evidence. The first recorded speedrun of Coconut Mall came out on the day of Japan's release, April 12th. The player went by the name Nicola, and he managed to achieve a time of 2 minutes, 6 seconds, and 259 thousandths of a second. Nicola managed to achieve this time by cleverly using boost pads placed around the map. Instead of using the glider, he decided to opt for the boost pad bottom part with the glider also. The best combination of driver and kart for Coconut Mall at that time was Funky Kong and the Bowser bike, which of course Nicola was using. He was also using a GameCube controller because they were used to it before the Wii released, so it just made sense. Now Nicola's time was far from the best, and he had missed a few boost pads and some drifting, so there was definitely room for improvement, which over the next few weeks, that happened a lot. The world record would go on to be passed down each day to a few different people until the 30th of April. Until then, if you had the turns and drifting down, you too probably could have gotten a world record. But now the only thing that would bring the time down was improving the driving. On the 30th, there were two clear people that would be battling for the best time. One player, named Sword from England, and one known as Yoso from Japan. On the 30th, Yoso managed to get a time of 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes, and 885 thousandths of a second. In this run, the only major difference is that Yoso was able to perfect the drifts, cut some corners close, and nearly miss a few cars at the end, each lap. For about 2 weeks after that, the record didn't change much, but Yoso only got 2 more records before he dropped completely out of the game, and Sword continued on his quest for the record. The record would then go on to be held for about a week or two for the next 3 months. And finally, on July 22nd, the 2-minute mark was beaten by one of the newcomers, Joshua. Now, he doesn't have a video that I could find, so we'll be focusing on Sword's record of 1 minute 59 seconds and 573 thousandths of a second. Now, nothing much had changed in the way people were driving, except that Sword had started to drift at the exact moment that he hit the ground. Also, at that boost part at the end, before the gliding, there was this part where he got a little speed from a slight jump. But otherwise, nothing much had changed. Now that the time had crossed the 2-minute mark, there wasn't much to improve upon, except getting better at the turns while doing better drifts. And that record didn't change that much for a while. There was one new contender that joined the fight for the world record, and his name was Joshua. Now Joshua wasn't doing anything much different from Sword, but he was using the new controller for the Wii, the Wiimote, and the nunchucks. The Wiimote was, in my opinion, one if not the best Nintendo controller ever made, but I've only experienced 4 of them. The GameCube, the other don't even name. Now even though it was the best, it still had its flaws. First, it was the only controller that required a nunchuck to have an analog stick. Second, Nintendo thought that you would need a Wii wheel for Mario Kart, and for some reason, they brought it back for the Switch. Now around that time, the long-time contender Sword started using the Nintendo Classic controller, which was the successor to the N64 controller, and in my opinion, one of the worst controllers. Alright, enough about the Wii controller and how it was great, and on to the next record. First, let me introduce the new group of contenders. Sword would continue to strive for the record, while some new contenders like Bubbles, Sro, and Chaos, as well as still Joshua, took up the main spotlight. The record would continue to be brought down by tenths, hundredths, and sometimes only thousandths of a second over the next year, with only minor improvements to the driving and the extra jump to get more speed. From this point on, everything we knew about the track would change. 2/3 of the race could now be skipped, but in order to understand how, you have to learn how Mario Kart registers a lap. Now Mario Kart Wii breaks the track down into invisible checkpoints. There are regular checkpoints, key checkpoints, and a starting line. Now the red numbers are just the regular checkpoints, and are just there so Lakitu knows where to put you when you fall off the map. You can ignore these ones, they don't really matter. But the starting line and the key checkpoints are numbered in blue. They are put there to register if a player has completed a lap, and without one, you don't get any credit for the lap. So you need to complete all of them to complete a lap. The starting line only sorta acts as a starting point. None of the checkpoints are actually just a line, but a box that extends from the checkpoint to the next checkpoint. If you step in any part of the box, then you've entered that checkpoint. The game updates which key checkpoints you were in last as you drive around the course. The map doesn't actually check which key checkpoints you crossed, but you were last in, so you only need to be in the one right before the starting line to count as a lap. The only key checkpoints that are loaded during a race is the last one you pass through and the one in front of you. But you're still in a key checkpoint. If you're still in it, then the one behind you is also loaded. For the rest of the key checkpoints, the game will simply not update your position in that region. Now, if you thought that you could just drive backwards and enter the last key checkpoint before the finish line, then you'd be wrong, because the developers thought of this and put in a system so that every time a player crosses the finish line backwards, it would subtract a lap. So when you cross the finish line, you would just go back to the lap you were on. However, the game developers didn't do one crucial thing that makes the shortcut I'm about to show you possible. The game will only subtract the lap if you go from the box in front of the finish line to the box directly behind it. So if you can somehow jump from the region in front of the finish line to the one somewhere further behind it, you can just drive over the last key checkpoint before the finish line because it will be loaded, and it will figure you almost finished that lap, so you can drive to the finish line and complete a lap. Now back to the shortcut. The player, a newcomer named Finton from Ireland, was the one to discover the shortcut, and it would go on to shave almost a minute and 30 seconds off of the old record over the next 8 years, and still continue to this day to improve times. On July 4th, 2011, using the old GNC controller, Finton would become the first to discover this amazing shortcut, which would get him a time of 1 minute, 36 seconds, and 794 thousandths of a second. Now that was like 30 seconds off of the old record before the shortcut. Now to explain the shortcut. It was performed about halfway through the track, around the part where you would usually cut through the store and do a hop. At this point, you would now skip the store, jump down to the escalator which was facing the other way, and with the bike, perform a little speed boost. This speed boost would launch the player above the rail that stopped the player from falling off the map, and if performed at the right angle, would cause the player to glitch underneath the map onto the base of the map, which is all flat and allows the player to drive around without running into any obstacles. It also allowed the player to drive into the key checkpoints with ease. Now, even though the player was under the map, they still needed to hit all the key checkpoints because they already passed the first checkpoint, so Finton couldn't go back to the key checkpoint before the finish line. Instead, Finton had to drive back through the first key checkpoint and narrowly miss the finish line, then drive to the fourth checkpoint and drive through the finish line while still being out of bounds, then repeat the process 2 more times till you finish the course. Now that I've explained the shortcut, I'm just going to explain records with great improvements to the time. The next major improvement was made on the exact same day with the Wii Classic controller, and was made by our old friend, Sword. He'd achieved the time of 1 minute and 19 seconds and 501 thousandths of a second, with minor improvements such as the mushrooms and drifting at strategic times. The next major improvement to the record was made by Sorazone, an American player using the GCN controller, with a record of 1 minute, 4 seconds, and 368 thousandths of a second. He achieved this time with a new trick of going through the store and being bounced into the level base, combined with the mushroom and drifting, allowed him to get the record. The next major improvement in times was made the exact same day, just like the other 10 ahead and before this. A player by the name of Zur, I think that's how it's pronounced, another newcomer from France, who was using the GCN controller. He discovered that by using Daisy and the Mac bike, he could achieve the first Coconut Mall time under a minute. He achieved a time of 53 seconds and 773 thousandths of a second. This new part of the glitch that he discovered was being able to just drive past the finish line, so you could do a quick 180 turn to pass the finish line, hit a wall, make a pinpoint 180 turn, and do it 2 more times. The world record times improved greatly from then on. The next major achievement was made by Sorazone, using a GCN controller at the last world record of the day. Sorazone achieved a time of 47 seconds and 375 thousandths of a second. The next major improvement in the course was made by skipping the store again, just turning, and just driving onto the map base. The time would only go down by the players improving their driving skill, until a Japanese player by the name of Takami would take over the world record for Coconut Mall. He would use Daisy and the Mac bike, but he would use the classic controller to achieve a time of 37 seconds and 250 thousandths of a second. With this time, he would have just found the best entrance to the base area by performing a tight turn right after using the left first escalator into the second corner. Now that may be confusing, but it's not that. This was the last major shortcut to be found in Coconut Mall, and Takami, a newcomer from Takami and a newcomer from America named Braxian would be the last two who attempted to get the world record title. The last record I'll cover is the current world record made by Braxian with the classic controller on July 7th of 2019. That record has stood for 111 days, and of this script writing, Braxian has held the record for a combined total of 1,064 days after Takami held the longest record of 1,304 days. The Coconut Mall speedrunning history has had its big discoveries, such as its big discovery of getting into the base of the track, made by Finton, and finding the best entrance to that by Takami. Coconut Mall is truly one of the best Mario Kart Wii courses, and its biggest discoveries still continue to help people such as Braxian achieve the world record, with the best being 31 seconds and 481 thousandths of a second, and the best lap time of 4.330 seconds made by Joshua. The world record has been passed down 136 times, and by 33 people, starting with Nicola and ending up with Braxian. It has come down 1 minute and 34 seconds, and 778 thousandths of a second over the course of 11 years. Their continued dedication to the lowering of the Coconut Mall world record has been due to the players' dedication to finding new ways to break the game and get the lowest time. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the history of Coconut Mall's world records. Have a good night, day, whatever time it is, I don't even know at this point. Hope you enjoyed the video. It took me many days to write the script and even longer to piece all the videos together. I love you all for listening to the end, and please, really, if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like or a comment, or maybe, if you're feeling that generous, drop a sub. Stay Swiss, do stuff, good night.